Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out to Main Point. Thank you for watching online, those of you that couldn't make it here tonight. I want to introduce my friend, co-worker, and brother. Huh?
Now it started.
Oh, you didn't start?
No, it did. It took a minute.
Oh, okay. So I gotta start over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good speech though.
Welcome to Main Point, gentlemen. Thank you for coming out tonight. And thank you guys online for watching. I would like to introduce my friend, co-worker, and brother, Gerald Stauffer, to give his testimony.
Come on up, Gerald.
Come on up, Gerald. Gerald Stauffer, everybody.
Thank you, Paul. Hi. Hey, who are you though?
Oh, my. Oh, I'm Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, Paul. Hello, you man.
You are.
So yes, thank you everybody for coming out and whoever's watching, thanks. So a little while back, I guess it was, a couple months ago, Frank, you had asked me to do this, and I was like, yeah, let's, I really want to do this. So I did it 2 years ago at Ephrata.
2. Yep.
And that specific weekend, we had a major ice storm, and Restart had something else going on, so there was like and then the live stream didn't work. So I was kind of disappointed. I was like, yeah, you know what? I gave it anyway for the 5 people that showed up, and it took me a while to realize, and I apologize for the people that came out and the people that watched the last time, because quite honestly, I gave a testimony as a hypocrite. And that's an admission and an apology all in the same, because I was still an alcoholic at that time. So standing before people and preaching God to people when I have a major issue that I was refusing to acknowledge, let alone deal with. So I wanted to get that out before I forget. But anyway, so yes, this is a story about my life. And all the times that I tried to make things work on my own, like last week when Ryan was talking about the elevator and grabbing the blueprint as soon as the door opens and runs out the floor, I got this. There's a lot of floors that I went and ran out on. But I was born January 1977. I grew up with 2 older brothers and a younger sister, and I was born and raised in a Mennonite family, so we were definitely church-going people, a Christian family. We spent Sundays at church and weekends with the church, camping and different functions and stuff like that. So growing up was a little bit difficult for me, so I'm not a good learner. I had a lot of struggles in school, struggled to make passing grades, spent a lot of time in IU 13 units, and in summer schools during my elementary years. So high school was definitely not any better. I did some cheating to get through some classes in order to graduate. I just wasn't getting it. But I did graduate from Terry Hill Mennonite. Through the church function and stuff, at the age of 13, I did go front during an altar call at I think it was the Gospel Express camp meeting for one summer, and gave my life to Christ, and went through the beginners classes at church and was baptized, and all was good. I remember being fervent about it, showing up to church and promising I would never do these things and that thing, and drinking and smoking, all that stuff. Be careful what you say you're not going to do, because the devil does hear you, and then he's going to come at you with everything he's got. And if you're not ready, or you're being complacent and thinking you got this, that's when he's going to get you. He did. At the age of 16, I joined the local fire department in Martindale. My dad was the fire chief at the time, and both my brothers were running, and so I followed their footsteps. I love doing that, volunteering in the fire department. I enjoyed helping people, enjoyed fighting fires and doing all that stuff. So I did that for 18 years. But once I got into my teens, especially in my later teens, 18, 19, I started smoking, started hitting up a couple parties, drinking here and there. And my parents tried to warn me. We had some discussions, and we had a lot of arguments, and I learned to dislike my parents. The parties got more frequent when I turned 21, especially is when the weekends really turned up. I had stopped going to church at that point. My parents and I were not getting along. My mom and I butted heads quite a few times. And I got kind of entwined with a small gang in Ephrata. So then the parties intensified in frequency and the late nights. Got into drugs a little bit. Nothing, that's a stupid phrase, nothing crazy. Anyway, see where I'm going with this.
You did the safe drugs.
I did. I did the safe ones. Yeah, let me tell you about safe drugs. So one night I was at a party. I was one of the in people because I was 21. So one, I could get you alcohol, and two, I'm a firearms enthusiast, and they like that idea too. So I never, if there was stuff there, I just got to use it. And one night we were at a party, and they asked me if I wanted to go back down back and smoke. So I did, and that's all I remember. I woke up not sure how much later than that. But I was laying in between two vehicles, half on the road, half on the sidewalk. And I remember looking up, and I could still see the party. So I got up and walked back, and they looked at me like they were looking at a ghost. So apparently, I was told later that the marijuana that I was smoking was laced with a drug called angel dust, and I had overdosed. So he's going to call the cops in an ambulance to a party with half underagers and drugs. So I guess apparently I was taken down there and placed there. And looking back on that, I don't know if this was the hallucination of the drug or something a little more serious, but I remember very vividly looking at me laying there between the cars. Like I was standing there looking at me. So I don't know what that was. It scared me so bad. I smoked pot a few more times way down the road. That scared the daylights out of me. I didn't even realize, I just figured I went down there and passed out because I was drunk and I smoked, and I just went down there and laid down there. I just remember the looks on people's faces when I showed up, and they're just like, wait. So I did end up eventually getting out of that crowd. But the drinking didn't stop. The arguments didn't stop at home. Still wasn't going back to church. I had been through several jobs by that time. By the age of 21, I started working when I was 15. By the time I was 21, I think I was on my 5th job. Just because I wouldn't stay there. I would get tired of it and move on to something else or something better or something different, whatever. And I was just miserable and I was tired of being at home. So let me backtrack a little bit. My buddy and I were going to enlist in the Marine Corps right out of high school, and that probably would have been a lot better than what I was doing over those years. It might have saved me from a lot of wrong decisions, but there's always a purpose for the path that we take. But anyway, that didn't work out. So soon after, it was about the summer after I turned 22, I decided to enlist in the Army. And so September, I was sworn in, enlisted, and then that November I went out in 1999. I went out to Fort Leonard Wood for my boot camp and my advanced individual training. Graduated in March 2000. That was somewhat of a turning point for me for a while. It did straighten me out, got me out of the drugs for sure. Nothing worse than popping hot on a test. Working for the federal government is frowned upon when you do that. Yeah, so of course my drill sergeants, they always like to know a little bit about you, and they found out that I was from a Mennonite family, so of course there was the jokes and I remember the one time, like close to graduation, my drill sergeant was asking, because it's one of those things where, he's Mennonite, his parents probably may have, since he joined, but they asked me if they were coming out, and I was like, yeah, they're actually coming out for my graduation. Oh, cool, because are they going to fly out, or are they bringing their buggy? We're not that Mennonite. They have bugs. No, they flew out. But it was an awesome thing. It was kind of it was closing a chapter, especially between my mom and I. That was a chapter closed, to see her come out and my dad come out, that it just kind of mended things out without saying a word. Them telling me that they were proud of me for graduating and stuff like that. So that was a big deal. That definitely changed a lot of things. I came home to live with them. So I got to my reserve unit it was in Gettysburg at the time, and met a good guy there, and we became pretty much inseparable. But then, along with the drill weekends and being in a college town, a lot of bars. So, yeah, done with drill training for the day. Saturday at 4:30, 5 o'clock, go out and grab something to eat, and then the rest of the night's yours. So that's what we did. Went out, drank, partied it up, whatever. We decided we wanted to get deployed, so we talked with one of our officers, our operations officers, and he looked into it. So he found us another unit that was close by in Maryland that was heading to Bosnia in 2001. So yeah, let's do this. So we did. Transferred to that unit, and August of 2001, we deployed over to Bosnia, and we were actually staying on the main base there. We had just taken over, I think we had just taken over from the other company that had just left when 9/11 happened. And that was pretty intense. I don't think there was a single time that I felt so far from home. We had just come back from a route reconnaissance mission, which is basically we go out and we travel a designated route to make sure the routes are clear and safe for convoys and whatnot, supplies. We had just come back, and then one sergeant come up and told us that the United States was attacking. First we were just like, yeah, whatever. And he said, come with me. And we walked in and watched the news as they showed the second plane hitting the second tower. It's just like, wait. So, of course, a lot of things changed for us over there. But all in all, it was pretty quiet. Absolutely beautiful country over there. It's just very, very war torn. And that was the reality. My first real reality with a war torn country is just pretty much every town that we drove through was buildings that were shot up, blown up, you name it. We drove through entire villages that were just nothing but skeletons. I mean, they would literally come through as part of their ethnic cleansing and blow the houses up and leave the people inside. That was just a huge reality check of what kind of evil can be. You know, we as human beings are powerful people. You know, and while we're here on this earth, we do have the choice of how we want to be. And seeing that brought that reality to my life. I know we were down in Sarajevo behind the Olympics arena was a mountainside, and all you saw from this side to this side were gravestones. I would be safe to say there was probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000 gravestones. Just acres, the whole entire hillside. And that was one of many that we saw. So that was my first, like I said, it was just a reality check, seeing all that. And, you know, we came back home in March of 2002. I started working at a different job, and then, of course, in 2003, we got reactivated for Iraq, and we invaded Iraq. So we went back on active duty, and that one was that was rough, because I moved in with two good friends of mine. We were living together, and soon after I got activated, they were involved in a pretty tragic accident. We weren't even sure if the woman was going to make it at the time, so it just, there was a lot of things going on, and it just kind of put me in overload. So I got held back medically, and I started questioning my capability of being a soldier in an actual combat zone. And so they held me back. And I eventually went, I think it was like October, middle of October, when I went to Iraq. And that was a lot different. We're not only seeing the aftermath, but being a part of it, so to speak. And you learn to be angry, you learn to be hateful, and then learning of a good friend of mine that wasn't able to come back from the one mission that they were on that was a big blow. But yeah, we came home in December, and I was in a relationship at the time that was failing horribly. So, of course, not dealing with the overseas stuff, and then and I'm not putting, I just started drinking. That was my go-to. Let's just drink, and I did, and I will say God watched over me so many more times than He ever should have. I remember leaving bars and couldn't walk straight. Somehow those vehicles got me home without a scratch. So, and I don't remember, some of the times I just don't remember driving home. I couldn't tell you the roads I took. I just remember leaving one place and ending up in bed the next morning. So somebody was watching over me. That just doesn't happen, you know. I started working at another job. I was working at Stony Ledge Auto Sales as his mechanic on Jeeps, and it was a really good job. I really enjoyed that job. And in 2005, we got notification that our unit was being reactivated for another deployment to Iraq. And my hand was the first one up. Because at that point I was angry. I felt guilty because I wasn't over there with the rest of the crew for the entire deployment. You know, I was held back on the medical thing. And when you're, you know what I'm talking about, when you're a soldier and you get held back with something, you feel like you're the weak link. So that's what I felt like. So I was like, oh no, man, I'm showing this one. Yeah, I'm going to prove to everybody that I'm a worthy soldier. So I volunteered to go back. Now my mom was pretty heartbroken about that. My dad was pretty upset, but usually he kind of just, you know, he stayed silent. He didn't want me to feel bad, or you know, mom was pretty upset, like not angry, but just like worried, you know, kids going back over, you know, into a dangerous zone. So I promised, you know, I talked to him for a while, and I promised him that, you know, after this deployment, I'm getting out. I was like, let me do this one, and I'm coming home, and I'm staying home. So that was kind of like the deal. So yeah, June 2006, we deployed to New Mexico for our training for 3 months, and then September was wheels up, and we went back over to Iraq. This time we stayed inside the wire. We were doing detainee operations. We were the intake. We were in a new facility that was at the time didn't really exist because they were changing a lot of rules and stuff, and the types of intake that we were taking were some pretty wanted people. And the one compound that wasn't part of ours, it was there on our base, but it wasn't. We didn't take care of that. We just took care of the general population and the different extremist groups and whatnot. I would say that was pretty just as stressful. I would have rather been outside the wire at that point. Having known all the stuff that we had to deal with inside the detainees and the politics that goes with that, and just, yeah. But we would usually about a 12-hour shift, and I worked the night shift, so that was kind of cool. You know, you get to talk to some of the detainees, and I found a lot of them to be friendly. Some of them were. Some of them actually made the mistake of getting a little close with it, especially I was running a kids compound, so it was juveniles, and most of them were pretty decent. Like they did whatever you asked them to do, and you know, I would sit there. We had the one we just called him Chief because they understood that means leader, and then the one that knew English really well, we called him Speaker. So it was, yeah, pretty simple terms, like yeah. And they kept those kids in line. I mean, there was a small group, so we had over 500 kids in my block at one time. So it was stressful at times, especially when they didn't want to behave, and especially when the grown-ups started acting up and burning stuff. How they got matches is somehow they lit stuff on fire. It was chaotic at times, but yeah, between that and the constant, the frequent rockets and mortar attacks, you're kind of always on edge and always just kind of like head on a swivel, just making sure nobody's trying to do anything. And they didn't just try to harm us. They don't like snitches. When I say snitches get stitches, no, they didn't give you stitches. They killed them. They found out who their foremen were, and we would have to take bodies out of the compound because these guys just, we were talking about that earlier, like if they found you to be not one of them, it was, not all of them were like that, but the extremists, portions of them were very, very, very harsh in their discipline and their rules and regulations, so to speak, of the way they practice. So that was, dealing with that was tough at times, but I came home, I started dating a female from another unit that was actually deployed with our battalion, and we ended up getting engaged. And we came home in June 2007 for a couple of weeks for our, leave time that we had accrued. And when I got back, they had moved me to a different section. And then come to find out that it probably was for the better, because while I was gone, the small little group of kids that were of the extreme belief decided they had enough of the chief. And that was hard to take, because we spent a lot of nights talking and talking about each other's cultures, and that's why I said I got too close, and that was hard to deal with, especially when they moved a bunch of the general population, I guess you want to call it, out of it, and one of them was the speaker, and I was actually escorting them out, and he was pretty upset. He didn't understand why I wasn't there. And that was hard. That one carried with me for a long time, just because I felt responsible for that. Even though it wasn't my response. It wasn't not my. I'm here. They're 8,000 miles away. That was hard to deal with. They were very young kids, and to see that kind of hatred among them, and it's just so. But I penned everything up. You don't talk about that stuff. You don't care about your feelings. You don't do this. You don't do that. You worry about it later. Right now is the mission. You do the mission. Drive forward. So I did, and my temper got worse. My hatred got worse. My anxiety got worse. Like, it just kind of snowballed, and everything just like packing up into that. And they had put me on the escort detail, so we would go out to the flight line, pick up new, we call it a fresh catch. It's horrible and insensitive. But that's how we kept it light load. That's how we kept everything, you left it roll off your shoulder. And so we would go out to the flight line at night after dark. Choppers would come in and bring in ones that were captured from missions or whatever, and then we'd take them and process them and put them in their specific religious group. And the one night, we were just picked up 2 bus loads, and we were stopped by the Air Force Security Patrol because they were holding a ceremony to load planes to come home. And they were loading the caskets. So we counted 17 that night. So when you got 2 bus loads full of some of, they were probably responsible for those caskets going home. And that was a breaking point. That's when I was like, give me one reason, give me just this much of a reason to pull my sidearm, and I will mag dump him. And it was silent the rest of the way home. We could have made some bad decisions that night, and it was contemplated for a few seconds. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a human being, I'm not a monster. But again, bottled it up, sucked it up, did my shift, went to bed, got up, did it all over again. But coming home with a fiance now, we ended up moving to Richmond. Drinking got worse because then I couldn't find work down there, so I sat at home. And until I finally, that was September 2007, a friend of mine, Spencer Zimmerman, got me a job. He said, hey, there's a job opening for security at 3 Mile, and if you're looking for something yet, I said, yeah. So I called them, and they were pretty quick to pick me up for security team for Exelon Nuclear. So that kept me in my mission and purpose field. That was, I always, that was me. I was needed a purpose, needed a mission, needed this, needed that. The same aspect, kind of. Carried a rifle, carried a pistol, you name it. So that was 2008. Worked there, enjoyed it. It's good money, good shift. Things were going good. Things were looking great. And in 2012, November, I took my motorcycle out for one last ride for the year, and I was, it was a little colder, so I threw all my racing gear on and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, why not, I wasn't going to, but I was like, it's my last ride, that's just in case I decide to crack it open, at least I'm wearing all my stuff. And I rode up 222, got off on 183. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that area, but when they were doing construction yet, there was 2 sets of red lights. So I went through, first one was green. Got to the next one, it had turned red. So I hit the brakes pretty hard, I got stopped, put my feet down, and that's all I remember. Next thing I know, I was laying on the ground and I see a bumper of a vehicle, and I slapped the ground to pull myself out of the way, and everything just goes flat. So I finally wake up and I lift my head and I'm like, I got hit. And I feel really weird. So first thing I was, my EMT thing, my combat lifesaver, all that stuff kicked in. It's like, all right, well, wiggle the fingers. Yes, they work. Yes, arms work. And I did the whole self-evaluation before I moved. I was like, I feel all right. I sit up and it's like, everybody's staring at me like I was dead. It must have looked horrible. I don't know. But I went from one side of the intersection to the opposite side of the intersection. My bike's laying over that side of the intersection. So it's like, he must have hit me hard. So an SUV, I don't know what happened, just wasn't paying attention, whatever, just hit me from behind, and I was able to ride home. The cop thought I was crazy, and he was right. I should have just pulled over, and I was like, no, we're, how guys are. No, I got this. Doing it. I'm on the road now. It rode crooked. It rode, and literally was kind of, it was bad. It's stupid. But I felt fine, so I rode home, parked it, went inside, because I had called my buddy at first and said, hey, my roommate at the time lived in Ephrata, and I said, we need to bring a trailer. He's like, why, what happened? And I told him what happened. He said, for crying out loud, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Well, I wasn't. It was, the adrenaline and whatever else. I got home and parked the bike and took all my gear off, and about a half an hour later I said, I feel really weird. He goes, we should probably go to the ER. I said, yeah. So we did. They took x-rays, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, they took me off of work for 6 weeks. And things just didn't seem to be getting better. And the doctor wanted to clear me, and I was like, I got this pain and this weird feeling in my neck down into my shoulders. And I guess, I'm not sure why, but he was like, well, you've had 6 weeks, I'm going to clear you. All right. So I got a second opinion. They sent me for an MRI, and they're like, yeah, you're not. So I had a herniated disc, which was actually protruding not into the spinal cord, but all but against it, and that's what was causing the. And the neurologist told me, he goes, what kind of gear were you wearing? And I told him, I explained to him I was wearing my tracksuit, which has, it's a one-piece leather suit with a neck protector on. He goes, yeah, that makes sense. He goes, if you wouldn't have been wearing that neck protector, that would have been it. Is that the weight of the helmet with you not realizing what's going on, or just. So I was like, well, I'll take the pain. You know, I don't mind that. So it was a long process, and I got into this victimization, I don't know what you want to call it, but went into short-term disability, turned into long-term disability, turned into employment termination. Backtrack a little bit. July of 2012, I re-enlisted in the Army National Guard as an infantry soldier. And in that very November, I got busted up. So I ended up just being, a profile ranger is what we called him in the Army. I couldn't do anything. 25-pound weight limit, couldn't run, no jumping, no standing for a prolonged period of time, no sitting for, basically you can't do anything for a long period of time, especially carrying someone. So that lasted, and I got into this whole dark spot. And what happened was I lost my job at 311. Picked up another job as an outside contractor at Sikorsky Helicopter, helping them with their manuals and whatnot. I won't go into detail with that because, it was an awesome job when I was doing it. But there would be days on end where there was nothing to do. So I would be stuck there for 8.5 hours a day with nothing to do. Couldn't drink. Didn't realize that was the problem, or at least most of it. And my anxiety got that bad, I would literally just leave the building, leave the property, and just walk down the road. And I would just walk. And then I would come back. Some days it would work. It would calm me down. All right, cool. I'd go over to the finishing department, check out the helicopters over there, walk out through the floor, go through the hangar, check out all the different, the choppers and whatnot. I started finding excuses to call off. At the time, I just took over a position of quartermaster at the effort of VFW, and there was a lot of tasks to be completed and things to be squared away that weren't quite right. So I was spending a lot of time there and a lot of money. There's a bar. So hey, why not have a beer or 10? So I ended up losing that job because I was the only one down at the Coatesville plant that was doing that specific job for that specific project helicopter. They needed somebody there 8.5 hours a day from 7 to 3:30, Monday through Friday. Has to be there. And I just didn't quite understand that, I guess. I don't know. Or didn't want to understand it. You guys should be pitying me. I was going through a hard time. Don't you get it? That kind of stuff. So I'll lose that job. Things got worse. The doctor had me on Vicodin. So then there's that story. Didn't realize that was happening until my buddy called me one day. He goes, hey, you need to give my wife a call. I was like, oh, well, I'm on the road. Why don't I just stop by now? You're not allowed out of our house anymore. But you need to give her a call. So I'm like, what did I do? Woe is me. So I called her, and she was very calm, very compassionate, very loving. She goes, I can't let you have my house anymore. She goes, something is wrong with you. I go, how many pills are you taking? And I tried making excuses. Well, I'm working in the kitchen at the VFW, and my back hurts, my neck hurts, whatever. I take a couple. And she goes, and then you drink. That scared me, losing a friend of how many years and his wife telling me that I'm no longer allowed on their property. It has never happened to me before in my life. I stopped taking. I was sick for like 2 weeks. I was like, I was definitely taking them way more than I should have been. Well, the bottle says. Take one every 4 hours as needed. So guess what? They helped me. They cheered me up. They cried every lie into my ear and believed them. I was told I was hurting, so let's pop one. Hey, let's preemptively strike this thing in the butt and take it before it starts hurting, then it won't hurt at all, right? And then let's not add some shots and beer and whatnot on top of that yet. In case there's people watching this that have heard all my excuses, this is me apologizing to. I made a lot of excuses. And it took me a long time, and some of them I'm still paying for because there's some people that will not talk to me anymore. Some very, 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 very close friends. It's not their fault. I wouldn't talk to me either if I would have done some of the things that I did to them. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, so I lose the job. I'm spending all my time at the VFW. Hatred, anxiety, everything is, it just keeps progressing and getting worse. Drinking's getting worse to cover those feelings are getting worse when I'm not drinking, and I'm just not paying attention. I'm not listening to people, I'm making excuses, I'm ditching out on stuff. I show up to my dad's sister's funeral drunk. I knew it was the next day. I made excuses. I got plenty of time. Put my last beer down at probably like 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's things that you remember very vividly. It's like, why am I remembering this? I was plastered. Sometimes you wish you could apologize to people, but unfortunately they have passed on and you can't make those apologies anymore, so you carry that. Yes, you can be forgiven. God forgives you for that stuff. He was very clear about that the day I rededicated my life and was baptized. I don't care about your past. But you don't forget some of those things either. When you're a human being, you remember those things. So 2000, yeah, I guess it was about the same. I was actually before a bike accident. Ashley and I started hanging out. And it was amongst the group. It wasn't just us two, dating or anything. It was just hanging out because we had a lot of similar friends. My roommate and I at the time had a falling out, and it was his fault, obviously. Look at me! I'm a nice guy, right? Besides being a drunk and a pill popper and pity party, I was a mess. Refused to acknowledge that. So anyway, when he was at work, moved all my stuff out, moved in with them, and I guess that was after, that was after she and I started dating. We started dating on Memorial Day weekend, 2014, and that's later that summer we moved in, and of course both her parents and my parents were like, it's cool, it's awesome you guys are doing so well, but you think about getting married if we're gonna live together. Right. So September we got engaged, that November we got married. Everybody's like, whoa, slow down. I had a horrible track record in relationships. They lasted a year and a half, boom, they just never worked. They weren't the right one. I just jumped from one woman to the next, to the next, to the next. If it was one night, cool. If it was more than that, yay. Where was that? And that's, we got messed up in a little bit of pornography, and that's a slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope, and it's a very dangerous one because it's available on every flippin' thing you carry electronically. Your phone, your laptop, at work, home, wherever. But that faded out. We got engaged, got married. Next month will be 10 years. Can't believe she's. Thank you, honey. wonderful woman. It was a blessing before. I never deserved, I wouldn't, in 1,000 years I wouldn't deserve that. God has given me one that helped me without even saying a word walk the line. Like, made me feel, the worth. And she had a chronic illness. And there I am sitting on the kitchen floor crying and drunk because I can't process my feelings or some stupid stuff like that, Because I had a hard time overseas and stuff like that. And she sat and listened. She should have smacked me. Try my stuff for the last 8 years and see how you like it, She could have, But she didn't. So I lost. In 2016, I had a horrible falling out with some friends. Some very, very close friends. Actually, my best friend, 2 of my best friends, and one that was like a brother to me because we were all veterans. And they tried to confront me about some of the issues, and I was, of course, already drunk by that time because we were having a great time, and let's just turn back some gin and tonics like it's no tomorrow. And they confronted me, and I exploded with a vengeance to the point of where it got physical, and the one had to drag me off the other one. And I still don't talk to one of them today. Wants nothing to do with me. Do I blame him? No, I was his best man, and it's supposed to be his best man just well. I told him exactly where he could put his wedding and where he can go with it. So there I was, again, the victim. He said bad and mean things to me, and I got angry. And I assaulted my very, very best friend and closest friend, my best man at my wedding, 2 years before, a year before. So I started pointing fingers at them. Oh yeah, blah, 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 but there's some liars and hypocrites in this group and yada, yada. And you keep poking, So fortunately that year, another friend I hadn't seen in quite a while said, hey, Martin's Paving they got some positions open if you're still looking for a job and if you're able to do it. He had offered that to me the year before, and I said, no, I can't do it. I could. Did. I was working for a tree trimming company. Just to tell you how things work. I didn't have to be accountable to that company. So I went in, I called them, made an appointment, went in, had an interview, and they pretty much hired me right on the spot. And the boss was a really nice guy, and really, really just forthcoming. I was like, yeah, did you ever do this work before? I said, yeah, I did it for 1 season for Burkholder's Paving back in like 2002, I think it was. And, oh, okay, so you a little bit, yeah. The guy goes all right. I said, yeah, you're good. And it wasn't. I forgot exactly how hard that work is. Man, it kicked my butt all over the street. And then some. And I was so scared I was going to lose that job because he's like, come on, man. Like, you got to pick up the speed. You got to do better. If you can't, I have nothing to do. I have nothing to do for you, man. It's that simple. So, of course, between my anxiety was just horrible for the first 2 years, was just like unbelievable. But they hung on to me, which was good. And I'll tell you why I was so scared. When I got that job, when I was hired, I was right around $75,000 in debt. and had $16.48 in my bank account. I was borrowing thousands of dollars from my parents because their long-term disability shut down. And then that was it, man. I hit bottom, and I hit hard. Still digging my way out. The job was definitely a blessing because it helped me get back on my feet, and I've had a purpose. And it was very difficult because I was still drinking, still muddling in my own misery, and but they kept me. They give me pay raises every year, and 2 years into it, I was helping run one of the road machines, one of the road pavers, so that was telling me that, hey, I'm moving in the right direction, because a company like that wouldn't just hand something like that to somebody and expect them and not care if they're going to screw it up or not. People vouch for what they're very particular about their work, and that's for a reason, because it carries representation of the company. So things were getting better, except for my guilt, my anger, my anxiety. I could not get the stuff from my experiences in the military out of my head, and every time I drank, it would get worse. I would drink more. Usually it worked, and then it just stopped working. And there was nights where I remember there was a couple times where I stared down the barrel of my pistol and stared at that hollow point. But by God's blessing, I was born and raised in a family that taught you that it's not only the cheap way out, that it's the wrong way out. So here I am, fortunately. 2020, COVID came around, so I didn't go back to work. You couldn't hit the state stores up here in Pennsylvania because they were all closed because they're state-run and they're not essential. I'm like, what? No, absolutely not. So we drive down to Maryland, and we did. And I was spending $300 plus a month. And I'm not buying $90 bottles of scotch and bourbon either. And I would go down there at least once a month, if not more. It's a good time. Road trips. So that went on for a while. And then I started drinking during the week. Work nights. When I was laid off over the wintertime, it didn't matter because I was laid off. It didn't matter. Have a drink here and there, doing the cleaning, have a shot or two. Go out and clean the sidewalks and stuff off for the neighbors. Have a shot or two or five, whatever. I'm at home. I didn't care. I'm getting the job done. What does it matter? But then it started when I would come home from work. It was like, well, I worked late, or it was a hard day and I just need to unwind. But then I wasn't drinking the beer anymore. It was shots. And I would do, looking back, it's like, I did anywhere from 5 to 8 shots at night within the matter of like half an hour. So, yeah, I still didn't think I was an alcoholic. I hadn't quit, so I quit for like 3 days. Yeah, just to prove myself that I can do it. Yeah, there it is. See, proved it. Back at it I went. And it just got worse. And I would sit up at night, especially over layoff. I would, wife, go to bed, I'm going to hang out, watch some movies, whatever. I'm not tired yet. And I'd stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, watching war movies or whatever, and drinking my face off, and then sit out on the porch and cry and smoke cigarettes because I was sad. And that was the only way I knew how to deal with it. Watch a little bit of revenge on TV. Got to the point where I actually put myself in those situations, And then we were invited to Lighthouse Assembly of God. My wife went a couple of times. She said, "That's pretty cool. You should come out." So it was February. Yeah, I think it was like February 2021. It was the first. I remember you saying, Pastor, that it was the first official indoor sermon. And everybody's like, yeah, from COVID, because he was actually standing on the roof preaching during COVID. But I remember walking through the doors, going off the parking lot, and walked through that door, and it was like an instant, something was very different beyond those doors. And it definitely wasn't the house, but it was the family that lived there. And that Lord and that Holy Spirit were present there. And that's what I felt. It was the weirdest feeling. It was like a physical feeling of like, wait. And I really liked it, so we went back. And then I started feeling the emotions. And I started feeling the seams starting to pop. To the point of where I questioned, I'm not going back there. There's no way I'm going up front there and crying in front of people that I don't know. It's not how we do it. Not as a man, not as a sergeant in the Army, not as a former Mennonite. We don't show feelings. What? Feelings? Nah. Nah, just poking fun. But I don't remember exactly what was said, but this man here, he kept looking at me the entire sermon. Like, it just felt like he was talking straight to me. And then he had an altar call. And I was trying so hard to get up and leave, and I couldn't get up and leave. And I stood up and I went up front. That was the first time, and I hated it, but loved it at the same time. I hate crying. Some people cry nicely. I don't. It's just a horrible snot and tears everywhere, and it's like, dude, somebody calm that guy down. He's scared the kids. But I felt change, and then April 2021, I had another altar call for people that wanted to rededicate their life. And at that point, I was so frustrated and so tired of myself. It was like one of two things was going to happen. And that's where it was the point where I was at. I went up front and I just broke. Like, it just, that was it. And I wept so hard. And I remember Pastor Rodney coming up and just grabbing me. And didn't even know why I was up there crying. He goes, "It is not your fault. And God's mercy is greater." That's why I got this shirt. And he said that to me. And it stuck with me, and that's my verse. And I have it written down. I am horrible. As I said, I was horrible in school, so memorizing was, yeah. So Lamentations 3:20-25 is the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is good to them who wait for him, to the soul that seeks him. And that is so true. And the mercy that he has shown me again and again and again and again and again. I screw up time and time again with the same thing. There's no way. This guy's got to be tired of me by now. It's like, who would wait 20-some years while this guy gets the alcohol party stuff out of his system. And then I dedicated my life, rededicated my life. There's not a thing on this earth, not a being, not a drug, not an alcohol, that will even come close to the comparison of rededicating your life and literally physically feeling that peace, that joy. Like, I literally lost weight that day. I really did. That's exactly what I felt. It just felt like something fell off my shoulders. And I walked out of that church today a free man. And there's nothing better. This country can do whatever it's going to do. It's going to, because it never would take that freedom from me. That is the one thing not a single man on this earth will take away from me or any of us. So just in closing, I wrote some stuff down. That one was God's mercy, Lamentations. And then there's his forgiveness, John 1:9. If we confess our sins, he is faithful and just and will forgive us of our sins and purify us from all unrighteousness. Doesn't matter what we've done, how many times, or what excuses. He is not interested in our past. But he does have a mission and a purpose for our future, if you so choose. That's your choice. He promised us free will. So you can choose what you want to do. And in the end, you either reap the rewards or pay the consequences. Overcoming fear. There's a lot of things in life we're afraid of. Me standing up here talking to people and then that thing sticking in my face. I can talk your ear off, I just not in a group of people and not about me. You know what I mean? It's just. But overcoming fear. So Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God, and I will strengthen you and help you. And then, of course, Psalms 23:4, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will feel no evil because you're with me. And he is. I've been through some pretty dark times. For some reason, I never left. And I'm so thankful I didn't, because I have a great wife, awesome in-laws, a great family that has supported me again and again and again over and over my entire life. And then I met this beautiful Christian family at Lighthouse. What more could a guy ask for, Can't. Got a loving God that's got your back 24/7, 365, doesn't matter where you're at, or there's always a door open if you just call to him. And I'm just thankful to be able to be standing here. There's 1,000 different ways where I could have been done it over with. That one reason is why I'm still here. So, and that reason is Jesus Christ. And if there's somebody out there that's still searching and think there's no way out, that is wrong. So like I said on Facebook the other day, you were born for a purpose and a mission. So reach out to God and he will amaze you. Well, that's all I have. That is my life. With a common ending, happy ending. Or a continuation. Not an ending, let's not say that yet. It's still going. Hopefully for a long time. But I'm just glad to be here with you guys, and thank you for listening and being a brother in Christ. And never forget that there's always someone. Frank and I started. He asked me to do this about a month or two ago. He said, "Hey, do me a favor." Like, yeah, he goes, "Keep in touch with me." Yeah. No, like, talk to me every day. Just whatever. find somebody like that. Doesn't matter who. You just find somebody that you can say, "How was your day?" Or, "Hey man, I got a problem," or "I screwed up. Pray for me." Doesn't matter what, and that's the hardest thing for us guys to do is to be vulnerable. What Paul says, and the thing is Corinthians, "For I am when I am weak, then I am strong." So be weak, because when you're weak, you look for help, and when you find that help, likewise, brothers in Christ start praying for you. No better strength than having prayer and the angels of God protecting you. Okay, now I'm done. I'm sorry.
Thanks for your testimony. Thanks for getting out of your comfort level. Right. Looking, you're watching still.
Yes, I'm still there.
Thank you for your service to this country. Thank you for what you do at the church. Thank you for being available for me as well. Appreciate you, brother. Yes, sir. Next week we have Max Hyde, who's actually here with us. Can you turn the camera on Max? So we want to say hi to Max. Max is going to be speaking. What are you speaking about next week?
Brief testimony and a message.
Testimony and a message.
No, brief testimony.
Brief testimony, message. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks for watching. Again, we're here at Citygate, New Holland every Friday night. Food and fellowships at 6:30. 7 to 8 is worship. 8 to 9 is testimony or teaching. Want to thank Ashley for
Yeah.
tonight. So thank you. Again, on the Facebook page, there's a food train. If you're interested in bringing a meal for a Friday night, just please add your name to the list, and we'd appreciate that very much. Can we give another round of applause for Gerald? Guys, don't do like you did turning it on. You better turn it on.
He literally pointed to me.